Alright, it's finally time for some fun stuff. So today, these bars are coming off. I'm putting the XR bars on. We're going to see if we can position them in a way that looks good and feels good. I'm a little concerned they're just not going to look like they belong. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I may end up having to buy handlebars. And then I've actually got new lever assemblies, new hand grips. I got a new throttle tube that's going to go on. So we're going to actually hook everything up so that this thing actually is rideable pretty much, except for the seat. So yeah, oh yeah, I'm also going to put the headlight back on, which I kind of want to talk about. So I was trying to figure out how this is going to mount. And it does have this stud that will, or could, yeah, it will fit through this hole. Problem is, when this is actually positioned in place, it hits the frame here. So I don't know if this is going to be, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like it might be aligned just fine. So maybe I will just mount it like that for now and we can change it later. What I was gonna get at was this original headlight mount. When this is attached, it extends the mounting point for the headlight out further. So then I'd have all kinds of adjustability. Right? So I was thinking I would just reuse that. The only problem is there are nuts inside of here that have been welded on, and I will have to cut those welds and try to get those nuts to come off. And it would get painted black eventually. But today let's just mount it like this. We'll see kind of how it looks and feels. So I got the throttle tube here with its hardware. I've got my new hand grips. I got the XR650L bars, the originals, that came off one of my two XRs. I actually don't know if these are from this one or if these are from this one, because my first one had silver handlebars. And then this is what I'm most excited about. I almost didn't buy these because I didn't think it was in my budget, but I've made a couple changes to what I was purchasing for this bike, and I decided just to do it because I think these are going to give it a cool look. These are MZS lever assemblies. So there's a new brake master, a new clutch lever, perch, new levers, and these things even have wiring for the clutch switch and the brake light switch if I chose to run those, which at this time I haven't, but the wires are labeled so that I can. I just didn't want to do it yet. Man, I'm so stoked about this. These should look really cool. So let's start putting this stuff together. All right. I don't think it's as bad as I thought it was going to be. The bars are actually low, which I forgot about. On the original XR bars are, like when you're riding, they're almost in your lap, they're so low. And I don't mind that look so much on this thing. Originally I was thinking maybe I'd chop out this middle support and then grind that, and then these will get painted. I might paint them regardless, but taking that out would make it look less like an enduro handlebar and more like a street bike kind of tracker style handlebar. That doesn't feel bad at all. It's actually a huge improvement over the stock bars, I think. I like the way that feels. All right, this might be going in a good direction. Also, I'm gonna be buying a Trail Tech Endurance 2. It's a digital speedometer odometer that'll attach to the front wheel. That way I'm still tracking miles on this thing. And I was thinking I'm gonna need a place to hide it. Honestly, it may end up just going up here on the handlebars. I didn't want it there because I wanted a clean look where it looked like it didn't exist. It wasn't there, but it's gonna be a lot easier to leave it in this zone than it is for me to run wires all the way back and then find a place to put it down there. Unless I can go right here under this, by this brake cable. But anyway, let's get back to these handlebars. I like this angle a lot. Also, these risers can be flipped around the other way, so I could move this whole handlebar assembly probably like 3 inches forward if I want. So it could be like right here. You know what? Let's do it. Let's flip them around and just see what it looks like. I got time. All right, so I've tried to kind of angle them so like this section here is kind of in line with the fork, but it doesn't look bad. I think I actually just raised them up a little bit as well. It's probably fine. Actually, it honestly doesn't feel much different. I'll probably leave it like this though. It doesn't feel much different when you're sitting on it, but I think it looks a little bit better because the risers look like they're straight up and down and not like they're angled. Whereas before they looked like they were like back swept, and now they look kind of like they're just straight up, which I think is a better look. So I think I'm gonna go with this. So I'm gonna tighten those down and we'll start putting levers and grips and throttles on. All right, so hand controls are on and I'm really happy with it. I think that looks awesome. For both of these MZS lever assemblies, it's like 60 bucks or something. And for that amount of money, I actually think you're getting a pretty good product. This is like, I don't know what material this is. This might be aluminum, but it looks machined and it has a nice quality feel to it. So I was a little bit worried about what I was actually going to be getting, but I actually really like these so far. Obviously, I haven't ridden the bike with them yet. I'm happy with it. My cable sleeve material came in, so off camera I went ahead and kind of wrapped the taillight cables. I'm still not happy with how this looks. This looks the way I wanted it to, but I need to do something else besides zip ties. So I need some other kind of tie to attach it to the swing arm. I looped it through the clevis that the lower shock mount is in. It keeps it there, but I don't know if I like how that looks. There's another cable tie here. There's a tape splice where the sheathing material had to be separated for the actual wire splice. And then this wraps around the plate mount, and there's another zip tie. So I don't think it's awful, but it's not done. Like, I also noticed this and the chain, they have the potential to touch. So I think I'm actually going to reinstall the chain guard and cut it down just enough that it'll protect this area. I am a little bit worried about the heat from the exhaust, but I don't know what I'm going to do with the exhaust yet. This is probably going to get shortened in some way. So I have a feeling this pipe is going to be further away from this than it is now anyway. Okay, so now I'm going to do this headlight. And I have test fitted this, and I've made a discovery. So originally, I was thinking I would just mount this directly into the frame where the original hole is for the original headlight mount. and then just adjust this all the way back. The problem is it contacts the frame right here, right on this VIN sticker. I can't have that, because this is gonna eventually wear a hole in that VIN sticker, and then part of the VIN's not gonna be visible. That's a dumb problem. So it looks like I'm gonna have to reuse the mount, so that this is further away from the frame. And to do that, I gotta cut the welded nuts out of it. There's just a couple of tack welds holding those on, so I'm assuming I can just snip that off, pull those nuts out, and then I should be able to just slip this clevis inside of that mount, and it'll attach just like the other headlight did. Let's do that, and then I'll paint this up and we'll get it mounted. All right, so the headlight is now mounted. I have it at an angle I like. It's a little bit loose. I think I'm gonna have to shim this. As I was tightening it, the mount was kind of, bowing in, which is, I wanted it to do that, but I thought it would eventually get to a tighter point than this. So I'm happy with that for now. This has to come off anyway because I have to paint it eventually. So at that time, I'll probably figure out a way to make that a little sturdier, but for now, I'm okay with it. So now, I'm going to wire this up, and this will be the first time I've actually tested the headlight switch. So I'm pretty excited. So I'm going to try to get this cable sleeve over these wires, and I'm going to pull it all the way back through to here, and then I'll wire it up, and I think I'll ground the headlight to this bolt right here. This is the previous fuel tank mount, and what I've actually done here is I've attached this little wire clip thing, which was, I believe it was under the seat originally, and it was attached to one of the bolts that the airbox was bolted to, and it was just kind of managing wires and stuff. But I'm going to use it to manage my cables by just tucking them underneath. But that bolt's going to double as a ground for the headlight, since that way I won't have to run this all the way through for no reason. So yeah. All right, moment of truth for this headlight. You ready? You have power. Although I don't think one is the high beam, I think they're both the same. They look like the same intensity to me. Oh well. I do actually have a single position on and off switch that I bought accidentally, so I guess if I really wanted to, I could replace that with that switch, but I'd have to undo all of my handiwork. So my headlight cable sleeve is covering the length of the headlight cables, and it's zip tied to the middle of the frame here. It goes under the mount where the ignition coils are, and then it kind of goes down here into the rest of the wiring harness, and I have it, if I turn that off, and I have it heat shrinked onto the base of its own cable there. They're zip tied on here where the tank is going to go. I did cut off the two mounts that were previously here because they were useless. And yeah, that's basically it. And then the control cables, clutch, and throttle are also tucked in right here. I'm using that little existing mount to hold the wires, and then I have the headlight ground coming out and attaching to this. I would like to get a proper end for this. I don't currently have those. So I literally have the wire wrapped around the screw just so I could test this light. But I gotta go to the hardware store anyway to get some hardware to mount my battery cover better. I want to get like a spacer for this area so that this bolt is actually able to tighten up against something that's not its own guts. Because right now, if you tighten this down, it tightens onto the back of the ignition, and that pushes against the fuse box, and it's not good. So I'm going to get a spacer for that. You can actually see on the wall there, the low beam literally shines lower, and the high beam literally shines higher. I don't know that that makes any difference at all. Pretty happy with it so far. Okay, so I think I'm going to end the video here. Just to go over what I did just now. Let's actually just take this camera off my head. I think I can actually, I'm realizing as I'm editing this as I go that when this is on my head, you can't actually see what I'm looking at, so I apologize. But I think I'm going to start shooting it like this. I created a little spacer for this mount so it has something to tighten down to. And that was actually just an aluminum tube that I purchased and just cut down. So I'm going to try to use that for some other things, but we'll get to that when the time comes. Then up here, I put like a proper ring terminal on this so that it's tightened down to the bolt and that's not going anywhere. That's it for this episode. And then next time the seat's going on, I've got the fuel tank and the rear fender that I'm going to show. And then I think we're building the wheels. I got all the wheel parts ready to go. So thanks everybody.